Scott Golden, Golden Opportunities Coaching, and the @PO Perception Twitter account here. Today we're going to talk about the power of forgiveness. If you're new, like, comment, subscribe, share this on social media. We want to start the Progress Tribe into forward motion at a more rapid rate, and each of your shares, likes, and comments help with that. Today, the power of forgiveness is our topic. And so, one of the things that I see holding people back from really owning their life, crushing it, smashing it, making real history in their lives is twofold. One, holding on to the energy of anger, resentment, and pain. Two, holding on to self hatred or lack of self forgiveness. What happens is we all have a bias to believe that we should have the answers to whatever life questions are in front of us. Maybe you haven't forgiven yourself for not taking school more seriously. Maybe you haven't forgiven yourself for someone's relationship ending or not being able to be what they need. Maybe you haven't forgiven yourself for not taking life as seriously as you could have and you missed an opportunity. Maybe you haven't forgiven yourself for being shy or socially awkward. Maybe you haven't forgiven yourself for not taking an opportunity or for things that didn't go in accordance with the beliefs of the way you believe things should have gone. And that lack of self-forgiveness really is one of the sticking blocks for most people. As a matter of fact, forgiveness is the reason why someone would remain past focused. And past focusing or focusing on the past is a completely likely thing for people to do, but it's also a useless habit to get in the middle of because nothing happened in the past. Things don't change there. The progress doesn't live there. Therefore, nothing can truly be handled or progress can't be made, growth can't be attained through focusing on the past. And so often when I work with clients, they say, well, I used to be this way, or I did this before, or no one would like me because I did this or didn't do that. And then what happens is a person will convince themselves, first habitually in the habitual mind, or they will convince themselves in their thought patterns that change can't happen, nothing will ever get better for me, and all of a sudden life becomes really burdensome because the belief system they're operating under is that the best of their life is behind them and they've missed an opportunity that they can't recover from the missing of, or that life cannot grow in a positive direction for them. I see this with entrepreneurs. I see this with people who've been divorced or struggle with relationships. I see this especially with people when I work with them, on addiction recovery, that generally the lack of forgiveness that's either given by others or given to themselves becomes a major, major issue. Now, it's unfortunate because when a person is engaging in that idea or ideal, they are going to guarantee themselves that they can't move forward. So the power of forgiveness isn't about tolerance of negative behavior. Much to the contrary, the power of forgiveness actually is more about the process of understanding and growing in a direction that allows you to see yourself as you really are, not as you believe you should be or should have been or could have been. And so what begins to happen is to forgive yourself doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with the action. It just means you give yourself permission to say, you know what, I didn't have all the information I needed then, or I didn't have the mindset I needed then to move forward. Sometimes people have difficulty forgiving themselves because they haven't done the things they should have done in the past. They were lazy, they were uninspired, they were focused on different things, on a different relationship, focused on any number of things. And all of a sudden what begins to happen is that a person will almost begin to stop themselves based on what they haven't done rather than what they could do. There is no, as mentioned earlier, there is no progress in the past. And so when you are looking backwards, you are guaranteeing yourself not to move from the emotional state at which you are currently looking at. And so you have to be able to forgive the actions of others who really and and have been and will be able to see your progress as a sign that you have changed your focus, or ultimately led to a deeper level. There's a certain understanding or a certain willingness to begin to understand that you also have to be focused more on progress than you are on the past, more on progress than you are on the future. Now, here's where the forgiveness trap gets into some degree of trouble. When a person is angry or frustrated that they haven't forgiven themselves, or that they focus too much on the past, then one gets the mental hesitation of what they might not do, or there's a fear of acting, a fear of moving forward, a fear of growth, because what if I miss something now? So forgiving yourself for not being completely informed on everything in every moment, probably a really good idea, because a growth-related mindset will mean that you're not going to always know exactly what you should do, or what's right for you to do, or how to get to a really positive place. Forgiving people who have broken your moral code, also extremely important. One of the biggest things that cause people to get into a higher level of judgment, thereby wasting a whole lot of energy, because here's the truth. Discernment and judgment are two different things. Discernment is this person in line with me? Should I engage with them? Judgment is the decision to say this person is wrong, this person is right. And the problem with judgment is that usually around judgment come very strong emotions. See, I knew I was right, and you get the bump of feeling really excited for a minute. Or see, this person's so wrong, their beliefs are so wrong, the way they live is so wrong. And then you harp on what other people are doing rather than moving yourself forward. So judgment in itself can be a trap that leads to unforgiveness. For example, a parent who says to their child, if you ever do drugs, you're out of my house. Wait a minute, what led the kid to do drugs? Not saying the behavior is right, but if we judge them harshly and we don't understand where they're coming from, then it can hinder relationships, it can hinder self-esteem, it can hinder value of how one looks at themselves, it can hinder, communication, it can cause depression. There's a whole bunch of things that judgment can do. So it's not to say that we shouldn't use the discernment to be able to say this fits in line with how I believe the world should be, this follows my rules, and this doesn't, and if something doesn't, I have the active choice to decide, hey, I'm not going to engage with this person because they don't follow my rules for what appropriate behavior is. Now, most often, forgiveness issues hinder or spin around the idea that, wait a second, you don't follow the rules of what I believe or how I believe you should live. And if you don't follow my rules, that means you don't care about me. And if you don't care about me, then I don't care about you. And there's so much judgment, so much vitriol, and sometimes hatred or pain or tears or doubt or confusion around all that stuff. Look, if we believe, no, really basic theory here, but if we believe that people have free will choice, then judging another person's perception based on being right or wrong will always lead to disagreement and eventual discord, because we aren't going to have the same worldview as the people around us. Matter of fact, the likelihood that we find someone who has the exact to a precision point worldview that we do is less than 1%, unless we literally have a person who's willing to amalgamate to please us. The reality is that even the people you love the most, even your spouse, your best friend, your soulmate, your family, your friends, the person that you believe is your mentor, there's going to be things you disagree on, and those disagreements can often lead to hurt feelings, which then lead to the need to utilize forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't mean agreement either, and that's where a lot of people get stuck. Well, if I forgive you, that means I have to agree with what you believe. No. Forgiveness is the power of saying we can agree to disagree and still walk in love or unconditional acceptance with each other. We can still find value in each other even if we disagree, because the true power of relationships is finding common ground, but also appreciating and valuing differing viewpoints. If you think about it, every bit of discord we have, every fight we've ever had, really comes down to misunderstandings, miscommunications, and then ultimately judgment, followed by action, leading to fights, violence, and all sorts of things. So forgiveness of a person's views being different from your own literally is something you may confront on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. Now, also, it doesn't mean lose your self-identity. Don't become a sheep. Become a lion, but surround yourself with the types of people that have the mindset that's closest to your own, simply because you're going to have the most in common with them. You're going to appreciate them the most. You're going to vibe with them the most. You're going to be in connection with them the most. You're going to understand them the most, and they you. And so what begins to happen is we can choose the types of person, because it all comes down to choice. Every person on the planet has the freedom of choice to some degree. Obviously, children have it less than others. People who have serious illness have it worse than others, have less than others to some degrees, but we all have the power of choice. The power of forgiveness is integrally interlinked with the power of progress, because the power of progress is that we can move forward consistently, continually, no matter how small. When we can move forward, that's what progress is. It is the moving from one place to another in a forward direction. Now, harboring bitterness, anger, and resentment will block progress every time. A matter of fact, how many people do you know that talk about the relationship that ended months or years ago? How many people do you know that talk about the employer that laid them off years ago? How many people do you know that talk about their families and the issues with, I wasn't raised right by my mom, by my dad, by my, treated right by my brother, my sister, treated right by my best friend, and all of a sudden that bitterness blocks the flow of energy and flow of mindset and flow of focus and being able to move forward into the life that a person truly wants. It's not forgive and forget. The truth, and there's a misnomer. The only way to truly forget something, and this is really powerful, so you might even want to take out a pen and write this down. The only way to truly forget something is to focus on something else. Because the fact of the matter is the human mind can only focus on about 3 to 7 things at a time. Those who have hyperfocus can focus on about 7. The average person is going to focus on about 3 to 5 things at a time. Now, every time a memory comes up, even at a cellular level or at a level of consciousness, what happens is you begin to go back to the linking, not the actual memory, but the feelings you have around the memory, and then the memory comes forward in a more tangible way. You remember based on how you felt. You remember a person based on how they made you feel. You remember an incident or something special based on how you felt, and then it links with your memory. So here's the thing. If you stay in the emotions of negativity, you're more likely to connect with negative memories. Negative memories and positive progress are at odds with each other most of the time. So a person who is constantly in negative memories or traumatic experience memories is less likely to move forward. It doesn't mean that a person can't do it. It just means they're trying to go uphill on ice and in the middle of a snowstorm or in the middle of a rainstorm. They're making life harder on themselves based on their focus. So the power of forgiveness is really linked with the gateway to being the power of progress. Because when you have forgiven people not meeting your standards, what you're really saying is, I'm choosing to focus on what I can control versus what I cannot control. And when you choose to focus on what you can control, you also are going to put out a different mindset towards those things that were originally offensive to begin with. Which means the people that you have the difficulty with will see a difference in you. And if they choose to still be in relationship with you, that difference may make them more open or likely to communicate about what happened in the past, but also how they'd like to see the relationship unfold in the future. Therefore, the power of forgiveness is the gateway to true communication, because it allows people to be themselves while holding their truth. And in reality, all of life is a duality in one form or another. If you do not have the power to forgive, then you do not have the power to progress. And if you do not have the power to progress, your life will not be at 100% Hulk smashed in the way that you want it to be. Instead, your focus will be on the things you cannot change, the past or previous emotions, versus the things you can co-create. And so I remind you on a couple of things as we close for today. This is Scott Golden, Golden Opportunities Coaching. Reach out if you'd like to work one-on-one in the About Me section of this channel. Also, please share, like, comment. Please comment about the things that you might have difficulty forgiving. We can work through that. Also, we're working on our 100 subscriber drive. Once we get there, going to give away a $400 value in a monthly coaching package. And until then, I remind you, keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.